Hi, my name is Julianne, and today I'm going to be talking about Supernatural. So, I got my coffee, I'm ready to talk about this show. The 12th season recently aired, kind of recent, and so I really wanted to talk about it. In a previous video, I think my May wrap-up, I mentioned Supernatural and how I had some issues with it, and so I wanted to make a video talking about my issues with Supernatural. Quick disclaimer, I love Supernatural. I really love the show, so whatever criticism I say, I still enjoy the show, even though there's many problems with it. And I am going to be spoiling the show, so if you don't want to be spoiled, you should probably leave now. To start off with, when it comes to a story, they have to have a beginning, middle, and end. You know, life is messy, right? So you never really know what the beginning of a story is and the end of the story is. Like, when does your story begin? Like, is it when you're born? Is it when your parents meet? Is it like the Big Bang? Like, does your story begin, right? It's very unclear. Like, it's pretty much when you want it to begin. You don't really have any clear, strict beginning end to your story. But with an actual story, there is a clear-cut beginning, middle, and end. You know, sometimes it can allude to things happening prior to when the story begins, and there can be foreshadowing to that there are going to be events once the book ends. Supernatural, though, it seems to have missed that point, because, you know, they just keep going and going, and I'm like, when is this show gonna ever end? Of course, I'm not a writer for the show, so I don't know what they have planned in the future, which, you know, they might have an idea of what's going to happen in the next season. Like, I don't doubt that they have at least the next season planned, but I don't know, like, as a viewer, I don't feel like they know where they're going with the show, and that bothers me, because it's like, it's your story, you should know where it's going. Like, while you're drafting a story, okay, maybe you don't know where it's going, but once you're putting it out, you should have an idea. The story has a specific point it's going to have to end, and you know, end the story. But Supernatural, I just feel like they're not ending it, and they just keep going because they're like, oh, we got offered a new season, I guess we can keep going because people are still watching and we're still getting renewed. There needs to be a point where they're like, okay, this show needs to end, even if we get renewed. You have to have a point where the show ends, because it's been going on for way too long. There are points in the story where it's like, well, I'm glad they have a 12th season because that one scene was really cool. But at the same time, it's like, most of what's going on, though, it's just you dragged out everything for so long. And it's harming the story if you drag it out for too long. And I can feel the irony of the fact that Percy Jackson's, like, sitting behind me and I have all the books. My second point, you know, this is an issue I have with not just Supernatural, but with many other shows and stories. This goes into Arrow. So when I'm talking about Supernatural and the problem I have with Supernatural, I'm referring to Arrow as well. Also, what I'm about to start talking about is directly influenced by the video down below. Both Supernatural and Arrow have a habit of killing off characters. And by killing off, I mean just like, you know, sometimes you think they're dead, and then you find out later they were just working for the League of Assassins. You know how it is. But sometimes they actually kill off a character and then bring them back from the dead. And they do it more than once. Supernatural kills off its characters so many times. I have never seen two characters die as many times as Sam and Dean have. It's ridiculous how many times these characters die. But it is just as ridiculous about how many times they bring back a character. Like, if you didn't want the character to die, just don't kill him off. Like, if you're gonna kill off the character, have the balls to do it. But if you wanted that character to stay with the show, just don't kill him off. Just keep them there. It's fine. You could have them badly injured, and everyone worries they're gonna die. But oh no, they survive. But instead you kill them off, have some weird grand plan of bringing them back. It's ridiculous how many times this happens in Supernatural. Like, they need to stop doing this. I highly doubt they will, though. The problem I have with characters dying and then coming back, although it's sometimes nice when a character you like does come back, it cheapens the death. Like, you know, when a character that people care about dies, the audience and the other characters, they mourn. They go through the, this grieving process, like, oh, this character is dead, it's really sad, and then you learn to move on. Then the character comes back, and that whole grieving process, the whole mourning and all of that stuff was for nothing. It was like, what was the point of killing off the character if they're gonna be back anyways? Like, it doesn't make any sense why you would do that. It's just messing with the audience, and there is no payoff. But really, the deaths in Supernatural have been cheapened. Like, a character dies, and it's like, okay, I don't really care, because they're gonna come back anyways. And also because they kill off so many characters, you just don't really get attached anyways, so you're just like, well, I wasn't attached in the first place. Also, they're gonna come back because it's Supernatural, and it cheapens this death. And, like, yes, I know, it's a world where there's angels and demons and ghosts and all of this stuff, but there's no power when a character dies. Like, when you kill off a character, there has to be some sort of powerful moment. And it's just like a random thing that happens, and then they'll come back, and you're just like, okay, whatever. And the audience itself really feels it. Like, the fans of Supernatural are affected by this greatly, because when Crowley died, that sacrifice, I felt nothing. His sacrifice, people didn't feel, at least in my opinion, because I didn't feel this, and just my judgment from what people have said. His sacrifice and his death didn't really affect much, because, like, in our minds it's like, well, he's coming back, so he didn't really sacrifice himself. Well, then there was no power in that sacrifice. The point of that sacrifice, the point of that scene was to make us feel affected by it. And I was not affected by it. I was like, okay, whatever, he stabbed himself. I don't really care. There needs to be power in these scenes, and there is none. There is none in, like, any of these scenes. I truly don't even care that Cass is dead. Why? Because I assume that he's coming back. But I assume Chuck is gonna show up. He does have a grandkid. So I'm assuming that Chuck is gonna come back at some point and be like, oh, hey, Cass, you're back. Let me help solve this situation with the Nephilim. And I do want to point out that there are characters I do want to come back from the dead. There are contemporary stories where someone dies, and I'm like, I don't care about what explanation you give me. Bringing them back, totally fine. I will accept any explanation you have. So, there are stories that I don't care if a character comes back because it's happy. It's like, okay, you know what? For you, I'll make an exception. But in general, to make that death scene impactful, maybe don't bring back these characters. Like, if you want a character to die, kill them off and keep them dead, even in a world full of ghosts and other supernatural creatures. And there are stories that it plays off this idea of people coming back from the dead, like The Return, the French version, not the English, but the French version of The Return. Amazing storyline. The premise is what happens if someone you loved who died comes back, and how that, like, affects your life. And it's just beautifully done, and it makes sense that these people who die come back, because that's the point of the story, is to play off that idea. Supernatural's just doing it for shock value. They're not playing off this idea. For a show that always brings back characters it kills off, there has been one person who has died that hasn't come back that I am still mad about. Her name is Charlie. I'm still mad about that death. She didn't deserve to die. She did not deserve to die like that. And this is a show where people come back from the dead. Why hasn't she come back from the dead yet? Like, yes, I want this trope of dead people coming back to life thing to stop in Supernatural because it's just getting old and tiring. But if they're gonna continue with this trope, at least bring Charlie back. But yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say, was just to, I have some complaints about Supernatural. There probably are others. Again, I do love Supernatural, but, there are certain things about it that do annoy me. If anyone's watching and has issues with Supernatural, let me know down in the comments. Let's have a discussion about this. I feel like Supernatural could be a stronger, better story if it stopped, doing the things that it's doing and starts finding new ways to present its story. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time. Goodbye!